All right, let's have a little talk about camshafts and about performance cams and what you can do and what things may not be a good idea. I think almost any performance cam is over the improvement over the original, even if it's way too big. But that's just my opinion. I'd rather do that than not do anything, because the stock cams on these things are pretty flat. From what we were looking at, I just have one here. I believe this is it, and I can just look at it. It's so small. What we do real quick is we take our micrometer and we measure this height here, and then subtract this distance here, okay, and add 50 thousandths, and that kind of gives you an idea roughly of, that's not exactly how they measure the lift, okay, but that'll kind of give you an idea of what the lift is. And these things, for these stock ones, I think if I remember, I'm going off the seat of my pants here, as I think they're around, most of them are they're all different. There are a few of them are different. There's a few different ones, okay, but the stock cams are something like 230 lift. I mean, it's not a lot of lift. So and the duration is probably somewhere in the 200s somewhere. I'm not sure, but if you look at that lobe, they're really low compared to a performance cam. Let's get a mild performance cam. This is a mild performance cam. This is a Web 86, and look how much taller it is and how much wider that is. It's quite a significant difference with almost any performance cam. Even an Engel 90 is a huge improvement over the stock cam. So, but this is a couple things to think about when you do your camshaft. If you're thinking about doing one, I would always, on every new engine build, I would always put a performance cam in it. And the main reason is because later on you're going to go, well, maybe I want to do this or that and whatever. I want to upgrade my power. And that when the camshaft's already in there, it will help you a lot when you do, let's say you change from single port to a dual port. You'll really notice a difference a lot more when you do that change when you have the camshaft in the engine. So that's why, you know, when you split the case, it's like just put the cam in at that point, figure out which one to do. Now, the cheapest way to do a cam is to get a reground cam. So you can get take your factory one, you turn it into a core, and what they do is they take and they'll bring the whole camshaft down lower, okay, and then they'll turn this into a higher lift and do it that way. So they take a stock cam and they'll turn it into, like, they have usually Engel grinds for that. So you have an Engel 110 or Engel 100 or Engel 120, and you can put that in your stock engine or whatever when you put it together. I like to stay lower in the camshafts. I wouldn't go up to the Engel 120, and I'll kind of explain to you why in a little bit. But you know, about the Engel 110 is usually the biggest one. I'll go on that, you know, if you're going to go with a stock engine. And even the 110's kind of over cammed for the stock engine. So there's ways to do this without over camming. So I'll explain that as well by using ratio rockers. So for instance, this Web 86, okay, it's a really nice intermediate cam, works great on a single port. But then when you start going into, let's say you put dual port heads on it, or you go to 88 slip-on pistons and cylinders, and then you change your heads to the big valve, then you're going to wish you had a little bit bigger cam. So then what you do is you just add the ratio rockers to it, the 1 1/4 ratio rockers, and you put those on. I have a set right here. These are AA ones. They're not expensive, and these are like almost a factory upgrade one, you know, style. It's nothing special about them. They have better ones, but I'm just saying those are available, and you can add those on. In fact, you can even add these. I believe you can add these to a stock cam. So if you wanted to just bump your performance up. You can throw the ratio rockers on there. I don't see any reason why you couldn't. I don't know that for sure. I might want to do a little more reading on that before you did it, but I'm pretty sure you could do that. So that's a lot of the different cam varieties. And the reason I ended up with a lot of these cams is back years ago, I used to tear apart engines. A lot of them were core engines that came in. And like this cam here came out of an engine. It was like in a 1600. This cam is a huge cam, probably for a turbo engine. And it was sitting in a 1600, brand new, and it had brand new lifters in it. Some of the other ones, the ones I put in the 2007, was because if it pulled out of an engine, we didn't build anything really big back then. The reason was because it was a lot cheaper to build a smaller engine, and now it's like not as much more as it was back then to build an engine. I mean, back then the crankshafts were about the same price as they are now. Because we didn't have the resources we have now. It's just different. We didn't have the head resources we do now. All we had was basically remade original stock heads, like we had the Mexican heads and stuff like that. And if you wanted to put big valves on them, you had to do it through machining it yourself. They didn't have like the AA style 4035s already built. They did have some of that stuff, but they were really, really, really expensive. It was just a different game at that point. So today it's a little easier to get the stuff a little less expensive as far as compared to original parts. So it's not a bad idea to go ahead and upgrade your engine today, especially, go bigger than stock. So I had that cam for the 2007. I put it in there because I'd never had, a place for it until it was here, but it was almost a brand new cam. So it wasn't worth me going out and buying another Engel 120 or whatever I was going to use. I'm just saying that for reference for that engine, because it was similar to that. It was maybe a little bit bigger than the Engel 120, but it wasn't. It was still in that cam range where I was looking for, so I was okay with it. One of the things you might want to be aware of if you go too big on your cam. Now, this is one of the mistakes. I mean, sometimes it's cool. Sometimes you just want the noise. You don't want the real rumpety idle and from a big cam. But you may not get performance out of that ever. Because what happens is if you have a really big cam and a small engine, what you're doing is, say your idle's here and your 6,000 RPM, say, is here. That cam's performance where the peak is, might be above your range of your engine. So it might not want to kick in till like 7,000 RPMs with the build you have. And what happens is you're taking it away down here to get it up here. And so it's in a place you're never going to use it. And you're taking it away in a place that you might be using it all the time. So what you ideally want is something that when you're in a mid-range, that it actually raises your performance up during the mid-range and at the top end. So those are the better ones to have. So it's like a mid-range cams, like the Engel 110, Engel 100. Those ones are usually in the okay zone. 110 is a little big. So what you could even do is you could go with, like, say, the Engel. I think the Engel 100, you can actually put ratio rockers on. They also have another cam. If you look at this Web 86, they have one that's kind of similar to this. If you look at this, this has a smoother, if you see the duration in the lift, the duration is kind of the width of the lobe, okay? And the lift is the height of the lobe. And if you look at the duration from here to here, it's kind of a nice smooth roundness. Now, if you go to like one of these ones here, where this is a high lift short duration cam, it's kind of more pointed, and a lot of the Engel, like the 110, has a really, really short duration and a pretty high lift, and it's a little bit too much, on the valve train. So you can soften that up by getting a smoother cam like that and have ratio rockers on it to do kind of the same thing that you were with the other cam. So that's just ideas I'm throwing out there. You could do your own research on that. So I like this website for cam stuff. They really kind of explain the RPM ranges and ratio rockers that you can put onto them and the actual springs you put on it. It kind of gives you like a longer version of what you can do with the cam that you're looking at. So this is the Engel 110. Then Engel has these FK series cams, and what they are is, it's kind of cool. They're meant for the ratio rockers type of a situation, where I was talking about the Web 86. So they have these available too in the FK series, and you can choose the one that works right for what you're trying to do. So like this FK42 kind of replicates the Engel 110 with a little less beating on the valve train because it uses ratio rockers. So like that's another good combination cam, probably a little bit better than the 110. And so you can read the specs there. But if you go to this website here, Air Cooled, they really have a great explanation of that. And it says dual springs are required. Sometimes it's, I mean, you got to kind of figure that out on your own. But, I don't usually run dual springs, so that might not be a way to go either. But just throwing it out there, you guys can look at this website, figure out what you like, and it'll help you kind of pick out one that's not too large. So, like I said, some of the ones I have are old school numbering systems that they don't even have specs on. And the Web 86 is the one I was talking about, not the Web 86 A, B, or C. They have those as well, and they have different specs on them. They have the regular Web 86, is a real base model cam. It's not really that big. It's kind of a medium-sized cam, like about an Engel, between an Engel 100 and Engel 110 with the ratio rockers. So, I mean, with the 86 with the ratio rockers, not a 110 with ratio rockers, that's really too much, really, for most engines, smaller engines especially. And then you'll probably be in the dual spring zone, so you gotta be watching that, because when you're putting that much lift, it's going over, and it's not going to want to come back unless you have a lot of spring tension. And then when you put more spring tension, you're going to have more issues with valve train wearing out and the valves hitting the seats and wearing out quicker, and just a whole bunch of things like that. So that's why I say stay mild in the cam. The performance, the really big ones, sometimes they can beat everything up a little bit. But I've even run them without the dual springs before and without the high rev springs. And as long as you're not revving it up really high, then it usually doesn't become a problem where they hit the valve, hit the pistons or anything like that. It just depends on how big it is. But anyway, you do some reading. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you which ones to get. I'm just telling you to research it yourself and kind of figure out what you like and what you don't like. You can go with what everybody else goes with, which is basically the Engel 110, which is the most common cam there is. And they do have them reground. I'm not saying to buy them through here, but there's places you can get them reground, like already made to a 110 or 100. And you can get that for like, 50, 60 bucks. And it doesn't really cost that much money. And you can even run the reground lifters with them. You don't have to. We like to run the scat lifters because they're a little bit better for oiling. And I think they're a little bit lighter weight. I'm not sure all the reasons why, but I don't remember them all. But the scat lifters work a little bit better. A little more money, but it's worth it sometimes to spend that extra money. And then... anyway, I would just encourage you to do some research on cams and figure out which one to get, but try and stay away from that giant cam because it can actually take away power where you want it. It'll give it to you somewhere else usually, and it'll be, I'd rather have a cam of any kind than no cam at all. Stock cam, because the stock ones are just really not much performance at all. And if you do have a stock one, running the ratio rockers on that might really, 1 1/4 ratio rockers. Some of these are saying 1.5, and 1.4s. Most of the time we're going with 1 1/4. So it's, it just depends on what you're doing. You can decide to do whatever you want to do. But anyway, just a little bit about cams there, and that'll maybe help you guys make decisions. And, you know, good luck with it. And you definitely put the bump stick in your new engine build. You'll be really happy with what you did. All right, talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.